The crisis had passed. A true quiet, not the quiet of dread, but of recovery, filled the luminous wing. The Vel moved with gentle purpose, their strength returning hour by hour as they breathed the clean, wild air of Earth. The humans had retreated to their docking tube, a self-imposed quarantine. They had scrubbed their suits and tools, and now they waited. Lee Hanna and a small team worked on the final external repair. Using a fast-setting sealant foam from the Daedalus stores, they patched the long, jagged crack in the crystal hull. It was not a beautiful fix. The foam dried to a dull gray, a stark, ugly scar against the shimmering hull. But it was strong. It would hold for the journey home. "It is not elegant," the Vel captain said, watching from a viewport as Hanna applied the last touch. Its voice held no criticism, only observation. Hanna, back in her suit and connected to the ship by a safety line, touched the patch. "It will keep your air in and the cold out. Sometimes that's what matters." Inside, Kim June helped the Vel technicians run final system checks. Everything was returning to green. Life support stable. Engines capable of slow, safe travel. Navigation online. They were no longer dying. They were ready to go home. When the work was done, the humans gathered their tools. They prepared to leave. The mood was not celebratory, but solemn, filled with the weight of what had happened. The Vel captain requested a final meeting in their common room. The humans came, helmetless now that the air was safe. But they stood near the door, respectful of the space they had almost poisoned. The captain looked at them, at Park Chul, who had joined them, his face calm and weathered. At Lee Hanna, with her sharp, intelligent eyes. At Kim June, with his earnest kindness. They were so different, so solid, so real. "You will leave now," the captain said, not as a question. "Your ship is sound," Park Chul replied. "You have a clear path to the nearest Concordance way station. We will escort you that far, to be sure." The captain's feathers shifted through soft colors, a slow, thoughtful pattern. "You entered a place of radioactive death we could not touch. You used your ship as a shield against a planet's hunger. Your normal breath is a toxin you did not know you carried. And yet, you are here. You fixed the core. You pushed the giant away. You cleaned the air." It paused, its large eyes taking in each of them. "Why? The risk was everything. The logic was all against you." Park Chul was silent for a moment. He looked not at the captain, but out the viewport at the ringed gas giant that still loomed, beautiful and deadly. "On our world," he began, his voice low, "logic often says to hide from the storm, to wait for it to pass. But if you do that, people die. So we go out into the storm. We have to. The wind, the rain, the shaking ground. They are not enemies. They are just the weather. They are things that are. Your distress call was a storm. We have a ship that can fly through storms. So we came." The simplicity of it stunned the Vel. To them, the dangers were absolute barriers. To the humans, they were merely conditions factors to be calculated, endured, and overcome. The galaxy's species built their civilizations by avoiding the fire. Humans had built theirs by learning to withstand the burn. "You are called Deathworlders," the captain said, the word feeling strange and heavy. Now. Kim June smiled, a little sadly. "We know. It means our home is dangerous." "It is, but it also made us this." He gestured to himself, to his crewmates. "It made us hard to break." "It did not make you cruel," the captain observed. "That is what we feared. That strength would mean brutality." Lee Hanna spoke up, her voice practical. "A hammer is strong. You can use it to break something, or you can use it to build a shelter. The hammer doesn't decide. The person holding it does. The truth of it settled in the room. The Vel had seen the hammer. They had feared its weight and power. But the humans had used it only to build, to brace, to repair. Even when they had accidentally struck a wrong blow with their toxic air, they had immediately worked to fix the damage. The captain bowed its head. A deep, respectful gesture its people used for great teachers or profound truths. We did not understand. We thought a death world created only death. We were wrong. It creates resilience. It creates beings who see a universe of deadly things and simply decide to face them. For others, Park Chol returned the bow, a slow nod. Thank you for your trust. It was the hardest part. As the humans turned to go, the Vel captain raised a hand. Wait. It moved to a console and input a sequence. A new broadcast signal, powerful and clear, began to transmit from the luminous wing. It was not a distress call. It was a narrative. A story. What are you sending? Kim Jun asked. The truth, the captain said. To the Concordance. To the Sioni the Gran. To all who heard our cry and turned away. I am telling them what happened here. I am telling them of the Daedalus. I am telling them that when the logic of survival said, abandon, the Deathworlders asked, how can we help? The message would travel faster than light. It would reach listening posts, merchant hubs, capital worlds. It would tell of the ugly, strong ship and its crew. It would tell of radiation ignored, gravity mocked, and poison cleansed. It would redefine a word. The humans boarded the Daedalus. The docking tube retracted with a final clang. The two ships floated apart in the silent dark, bathed in the light of the red sun. From the bridge of the Daedalus, Park Chul watched the luminous wing. On the screen, they saw the Vel ship's running lights activate, but they did not just turn on. They began to flash in a complex, beautiful sequence pulses of blue, green, and silver light dancing across the crystal hull. It's a pattern, Kim Jun said, studying it. Not a code. It's art. Lee Hanna smiled. It's a thank you. The light play lasted for several minutes, a silent song of gratitude written in luminescence against the backdrop of stars. Then, with a final bright pulse, the luminous wing turned. Its engines, gentle and quiet, glowed to life. It began its slow, steady journey back towards safety. On the Daedalus bridge, there was no cheering. The crew simply returned to their stations. They had a long trip home. Kim Jun monitored the Vel ship's progress until it vanished into the warp shimmer of faster-than-light travel. Do you think it will change anything? He asked quietly. What they said about us. Park Chul leaned back in his chair, looking at the now empty space where the crystal ship had been. It won't change the gravity of Earth. It won't stop the storms. But the next time someone sends a distress call from a dangerous place, and a human ship is near. He let the sentence hang. Lee Hanna finished it, her tone matter-of-fact as she reviewed engine outputs. They'll know what to expect. They'll know a Deathworlder is coming. And maybe, just maybe, they won't be so afraid. The Daedalus turned its blunt nose away from the gas giant, towards the distant pinprick of its own home. It had come to a deadly place and done a simple thing. It had answered a call. In doing so, it had not just saved a ship. It had planted a seed. The galaxy had expected Deathworlders to be the cause of distress. They would now have to learn that sometimes they were the answer. With the immediate crisis over, a fragile calm settled on the luminous wing. The ship was stable, its power core humming with clean, blue energy. The crushing pull of the gas giant was now just a threat outside the viewports, held at bay. The Vel moved with a new purpose, their feather colors shifting to soft blues and yellows of profound relief. They began to offer gestures of thanks, ringing forward small, Elegant containers of what looked like water and delicate food wafers. Captain Park Chul, monitoring from the Daedalus, gave the order. Establish a shared atmosphere. It'll make communication and repair easier. Cycle out our suit air and match theirs. Let's not make them breathe our mix if we don't have to. It was a standard, considerate procedure. Lee Hanna oversaw it from the docking tube. The humans closed their helmets again. They evacuated the thick, fortified air from their suits and the docking tube, replacing it with the exact atmospheric composition of the Vel ship, a thin, nitrogen-rich blend with trace argon, scanned and replicated by the Daedalus's environmental systems. To the humans, it felt like breathing the air at a high mountain peak. Thin but fine, they opened their helmets. The air was cool and scentless. Much better, Kim Jun said, smiling at the Vel captain. Now we can talk face to face. The Vel captain chirped gratefully. The humans had not only saved them, but were now breathing their air as a sign of respect. The crew began to relax further. They guided the humans to a larger chamber, a kind of common room, to rest and discuss final repairs. Lee, Hanna, and Kim. June sat on offered seating crystalline benches that were strangely comfortable. They drank the offered water, which tasted faintly of minerals. They talked with the Vel technicians, using simple terms and gestures to plan the temporary patch for the hull crack. The mood was turning from one of rescue to one of cooperation. But then, the youngest Vel, the one who had been most fearful, let out a soft, distressed warble. It was standing near the doorway, its slender form beginning to tremble. Its feathers, which had been a calm yellow, were rapidly paling to a sickly, washed-out white. It slumped against the wall. Then another Vel, near the human repair tools, made a choking sound and stumbled. The Vel captain jumped up, its own feathers flashing with alarm. What is happening? Lee Hanna was on her feet instantly, her medic training kicking in. June scanned them. She rushed to the youngest Vel, her movements quick and sure. She didn't touch it, but pulled a medical scanner from her belt. Kim Jun did the same, his face tight with concern. The human scanners were not designed for Vel biology, but they could read vital signs. Life signs are falling. Rapidly. It's like they're being poisoned, Jun said, his voice tense. How? The atmosphere is theirs. Hanna looked around wildly. The air? The water? Had they brought some contaminant on their suits? The Vel captain was now holding its head, a low hum of pain escaping it. The air. It burns. It is wrong. The air. Hannah's mind raced. They had matched the atmosphere perfectly. Nitrogen, argon. But they had filtered it through the Daedalus' systems. What did the Daedalus add? What did humans consider normal that wasn't? June, full atmospheric analysis. Now, compare our ship's standard air to this sample. She yelled into her wristcom, which was still open to the Daedalus. Captain, we have a problem. The Vel are reacting badly to the shared atmosphere. Isolate our ship's environmental output immediately. Do not let any more of our air over there. On the Daedalus, Park Chol snapped into action. Seal the primary air exchange. Go to internal recycling only. In the Vel common room, Kim Jun's scanner beeped, its small screen displaying 2 lists of chemicals. The base gases were identical, but there were differences. Tiny, almost insignificant traces in the air the humans had provided. Here, he said, pointing, ozone, 0.001%, and chlorine compounds, microscopic. From where? Hanna asked. The water reclamation, the atmospheric processors. It's background for us. It's what makes our recycled air smell clean. Her eyes went wide with horror. To a human, those minuscule amounts were harmless, even beneficial, a byproduct of keeping air sterile. To a species with delicate crystalline respiratory filters, it was acid rain in their lungs. It's us, June said, his voice hollow. Our clean air is toxic to them. The Vel captain understood enough. Its large, dark eyes looked from the scanner to Kim June's stricken face. The humans had not meant this. They looked as horrified as the Vel felt. But the truth was awful. The very presence of the humans, their normal processes, was killing them. You must. Leave, the Vel captain rasped, the effort painful. Your help becomes harm. Lee Hanna shook her head, a fierce, determined look on her face. No, we caused it. We fix it? June. We need pure air, not from our processors. From the storage tanks. The virgin nitrogen-oxygen mix we brought from Earth for emergencies. The reserve tanks? That's our last resort supply, June said. It's a resort they need right now, Hannah snapped. Captain, we need a full atmospheric purge and replacement on the luminous wing. We need to flush the entire ship with pure, unprocessed air from our reserve tanks. And we need to do a deep scrub of the docking tube. We are the contamination source. On the Daedalus, Park Chol was already moving. Do it. Use all the reserve if you have to. Hannah, get those affected into a clean area. The next hour was a tense, desperate reversal. The humans became a blur of controlled action. They gently carried the weakened Vel to the far end of the ship. Using heavy-duty emergency equipment, they sealed off sections. They attached thick hoses from the Daedalus's reserve tanks to the Vel ship's environmental intake dot with a hissing roar. The purge began. The thin, tainted air was violently evacuated into space. Then, the clean, cold, unprocessed air from the human reserves flooded in. It was the air of high mountains and deep forests, utterly free of the industrial byproducts that were normal for human ships. Lee Hanna and Kim June stayed with the Vel, now wearing their sealed helmets again, breathing their own contained air. They monitored the victims as the clean air filled the room. For several long minutes, nothing changed. The Vel lay still, their colors dull. Then, the youngest Vel shuddered. It took a deeper, less ragged breath. The sickly white of its feathers began to recede, replaced slowly by a faint, hopeful green. Then another Vel stirred. The choking sound stopped. The Vel captain, who had resisted the worst of it, looked at its recovering crew, then at the two humans in their bulky suits, standing guard like silent armored statues. The humans had not run from their mistake. They had not made excuses. They had identified a poison they themselves carried, and they had washed it away with their most precious resource. The burning is gone, the captain said softly. The air is cool. It is pure. Lee Hanna let out a shaky breath inside her helmet. It is air from our home, from before we put it through machines. It is just air. Kim June knelt beside the recovering young Vel. I am so sorry, he said, his voice thick with emotion only the other human could hear. We did not know. The Vel captain looked from the humans to its crew, who were now slowly sitting up, their strength returning. The lesson was settling deep, far deeper than the fear of their strength or the awe of their power. These Deathworlders were not just strong. They were resilient in a way the galaxy did not understand. They lived with constant, low-level threats radiation. Gravity, even their own clean air, was a mild toxin that would kill others. They did not even notice them. And when they learned that their normal was another's poison, they did not leave. They did not blame. They fixed it. They sacrificed their own resources to make it right. The galaxy saw a death world and thought of death. The Vel, breathing the clean, wild air of Earth, were beginning to see something else. They saw a world so fierce that it forged a people who did not know how to quit, who saw a problem, even one they had accidentally created, as just another thing to overcome. The storm was not just outside. It was in their very nature, and they had learned to shelter others from it. The interior of the luminous wing was breathtaking. Light did not come from lamps, but seemed to glow from the very walls and floor, which were made of the same smooth, crystalline material as the hull. It was beautiful, and to Lee Hana's engineering mind, terrifyingly fragile. Every step her team took in their heavy boots echoed, and she could see the Vel flinch at the sound. They moved like they were walking on the thinnest ice. The Vel captain led them through curving corridors to the heart of the ship. The central engineering chamber was not a room of roaring machines and pipes, but a silent, cavernous space. In the center, a complex structure of interlocking crystal rods pulsed with a soft, sickly yellow light instead of its usual steady blue. A visible distortion, like heat haze, shimmered around it. The gravity shear, the Vel captain explained, its voice a sad song. It twisted the primary energy conduit. The core is unstable. It leaks radiation that is deadly to us. We cannot approach. Our tools cannot function in the field. The compartment to access the junction is there. It pointed a slender arm towards a small arched doorway near the base of the crystal structure. A faint, ominous glow came from within. Lee Hana moved closer, her suit's sensors beeping quietly on her wrist display. She read the numbers. High gamma radiation. Intense localized gravity, about 0.9 Earth standard. And the access way is tiny. Kim June peered at the small doorway. I could fit, maybe. The Vel chirped in alarm. You cannot. The radiation dose would be fatal in minutes. The gravity in that small space is crushing. June looked at Hana. Hana looked at her sensors, then at June's suit. Your suit is rated for it. The radiation shielding will hold for 15 minutes before the cumulative dose gets risky. The gravity is actually a bit lighter than home. She turned to the Vel captain. Our bodies are built for higher gravity. Our cells can repair more radiation damage. It is not comfortable, but it is possible. The Vel stared at them. Their concept of possible was being rewritten in front of them. What was a death sentence for them was a dangerous but manageable task for these humans. What do you need to do? Hana asked the Vel's chief technician. The technician, its feathers flushed with anxious green, explained. A key crystal rod deep inside the small compartment had been knocked out of alignment. It needed to be physically rotated 43 degrees and reseated into its housing. It was a simple operation, impossible for the Vel. June, you're up, Hana said. Suit integrity check. Tool pack. You have 13 minutes. As Kim June prepared, checking the seals on his suit and grabbing a long, simple torque tool from his pack, a new alarm sounded. This one was a deep, vibrating groan that came through the very structure of the ship. The lights flickered. On the Daedalus bridge, Park Chol saw the new data. Hana, the luminous wing's orbit is decaying faster. The gas giant's pull is winning. They're being dragged in. Lee Hana heard him through her suit radio. Understood? June, you have to move faster. We'll handle the orbit. June gave a tight nod. He took a deep breath and walked towards the small, glowing archway. He had to turn sideways to squeeze through. Inside, the world changed. The radiation warning on his visor blinked steadily. The gravity felt like a heavy hand on his shoulders, familiar and oppressive. The air shimmered with energy. Before him, the heart of the crystal glowed, a beautiful and deadly thing. He could see the misaligned rod, a brilliant shaft of light askew in its socket. He lifted the torque tool. It was slow work. The gravity fought every movement. The radiation made his suit's external sensors fuzz with static. He could hear his own breathing, loud in his helmet. He fitted the tool over the crystal. It was hot to the touch, even through his gloves. He leaned his weight into it. The crystal began to move, grinding slowly back into place. Outside, the situation was getting worse. The groaning of the ship grew louder. On the Daedalus, Park Chol and his pilot were firing thrusters, trying to use the ship's own power to gently push the luminous wing away from the giant. But the human ship's thrust was too strong. Pushing directly against the fragile crystal hull would shatter it. A tractor beam is useless against this much drag, the pilot said, frustration in his voice. We can't get a clean grip. Their structure is too weak. Lee Hanna looked around the Vel engineering chamber. She looked at the delicate walls, at the massive human ship hovering just outside the viewport. An idea, a wild brute force idea, formed in her mind. Captain, she said over the radio, we can't pull them. We have to become part of their structure. Explain. Park Chol's voice was calm. The Daedalus landing claws. The ones we use to lock onto asteroids for mining surveys. We brace them against the strongest structural points on this ship. We lock onto them. Then we don't pull. We use our thrusters to lift them. We take the strain on our hull, not theirs. There was a moment of silence on the radio. The Vel, listening to this translated plan, trembled. The idea of those monstrous metal claws grabbing their beautiful ship was a nightmare image. You want to use my ship as a crutch, Park Chol said. As a splint, Hannah corrected. Their ship is the broken bone. Ours is the cast. We have to be rigid. They have to trust us not to move. Park Chol looked at the viewer. He saw the gas giant, hungry and immense. He saw the fragile crystal ship. He saw the blinking light that was Kim June, deep in a radioactive hole. Do it. Talk me through the points. We get one chance. Inside the radiation compartment, Kim June heard none of this. His world was the crystal rod. It was almost seated. His muscles ached from the constant gravity. A warning flashed. Radiation shielding at 65%. He ignored it. With one final grunting push, he felt the crystal rod click home. Instantly, the sickly yellow glow from the central core vanished. A clean, steady blue light pulsed out, filling the engineering chamber. The distorted haze around the machinery faded. The Vel let out a collective, warbling sound of pure relief. June backed out of the compartment, his suit scraping against the crystal doorway. He emerged into the chamber. Lee Hanna was not looking at him. She was at a viewport, talking rapidly. June, good work. Now get over here. We're not done. June moved to her side. Outside, the Daedalus was moving. It was coming closer, much closer than any ship should. It turned slowly, presenting its underbelly to the luminous wing. From its hull, 4 massive articulated metal arms unfolded. They ended in vicious-looking clamps, each the size of a small shuttle. They are going to crush us. A Vel cried. No, Hannah said firmly, though she was not fully sure herself. They are going to save you? Captain, she spoke into her radio. The primary node is here, at the base of the central spine. The secondary is 20 meters aft, along the main support ridge. You see them? We see them. Park Chol's voice was tense. Moving into position. The first claw, moving with agonizing slowness, reached out. The Vel shut their eyes. They heard the sound of metal on crystal, a hard, scraping touch. Then a deep clunk that vibrated through the deck. Then another. And another. The Daedalus had locked on. It was now holding the luminous wing in a fierce metal embrace. All claws locked, Park Chol said. Hull stress is rising, but within limits. Initiating lift. The Vel felt it. It was not a tug. It was not a pull. It was as if the very universe had decided to hold them still. The terrible groaning of the ship, the shudder of its fall, stopped. Then a new sensation. A slow, relentless upward push. On the Daedalus, alarms were blaring. The stress on the landing claw mechanisms was immense. The gravitational pull of the gas giant was fighting them. Metal groaned in protest. Hull integrity at 85%. A crew member reported. "Keep the thrust steady," Park Chol ordered, his hands gripping his chair. "We are their foundation now. We do not bend." For long silent minutes, the only sound was the groan of human metal and the soft hum of the Vel's restored core. Slowly, steadily, the two locked-together ships began to climb out of the gravity well, away from the crushing edge of the atmosphere. When the luminous wing was finally back in a stable, high orbit, the silence that followed was profound. The Daedalus slowly, carefully, retracted its claws. The deep vibrations ceased in the Vel engineering chamber. Lee Hanna let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Kim June sagged against a wall, exhausted. The Vel captain looked at the humans, then out the viewport at the battered, ugly, incredible human ship that had just wrestled a planet for them. Their fear was gone. In its place was a feeling they had no name for. It was awe, mixed with a deep, humbling gratitude. These beings had not just repaired a machine. They had moved a ship by becoming its bones. They had stared into a crushing, radioactive pit and called it a simple task. The galaxy had given them logic and reasons. The humans had given them strength. The GCS Daedalus cut through the void like a stone thrown into a black sea. Its engines burned a bright, steady blue, pushing the ship at a speed that would have made most Concordance vessels shudder apart. Inside, the crew worked with a quiet focus. Lee Hanna was in the engineering bay, watching stress indicators on a large screen. The ship was entering the debris field around the ringed gas giant. Small pieces of rock and ice, the shattered remains of old moons, pinged against the hull. On a Sione ship, each impact would have been a crisis. On the Daedalus, it was a steady, faint drumming sound like heavy rain on a metal roof. "Shields at minimum," Hanna said to her assistant. "We don't need them. The hull can handle this. Redirect power to the forward sensors. I want a clear picture of that alien ship." On the bridge, Kim June listened. The distress beacon was stronger now, a clear and desperate pulse. But there was no answer to his hails. "Captain, they are receiving our signal. I'm sure of it. But they are not replying." Captain Park Chol stared at the main viewer. The gas giant filled half the screen, a giant striped ball of orange and red, its thin rings like a knife edge. And there, highlighted by the computer, was the luminous wing. It was even more beautiful and fragile looking up close. And the crack along its side was clearly a deadly wound. "Maybe their coms are dead," Park said. "Or maybe they're too weak to answer. Bring us in close, standard rescue distance. Hanna, are you ready?" Lee Hanna's voice came over the speaker. "Ready, Captain. The docking collar is extended. Suit teams 1 and 2 are in the airlock. Environment is sealed." The Daedalus slowed, its thrusters firing in small bursts. It moved with a surprising gentleness for such a bulky ship, coming to rest a few hundred meters from the stricken Vel vessel. To the humans, it was a standard approach. To the beings watching from the luminous wing, it was the approach of a monster. Inside the crystal ship, the Vel were huddled together on the bridge. Their feathers were a flat, terrified white. Their large eyes were fixed on the screen that showed the human ship. "It is massive," whispered the communication officer. "It is." "Ugly," said another. "It has no grace. It is all edges and hard surfaces." "But it is here?" the old captain said, its voice trembling. It answered, "At what cost?" A young Vel replied, its feathers flashing with fear colors. "Look at it. Look at it. It flies through the debris without shields. Its hull is scarred and thick. This is not a rescue ship. This is a predator. We have called a thing from the dark places. It has come to scavenge what is left of us." The captain had no argument. In all their history, in all the stories of the galaxy, no ship that looked like that belonged to a peaceful people. Peaceful people built delicate, efficient things. This human ship was built to endure violence. The logic was terrifying. A new sound echoed through the luminous wing, a deep, metallic thump that vibrated through the crystal structure, making the Vel flinch. Then a grinding, clanking sound. "They are attaching to us." The young Vel cried. "It is the end," others hummed, their song turning into a fearful drone. On the Daedalus, the docking process was simple. A heavy, telescoping tube extended from the human ship. At its end was a magnetic seal. It clamped onto the smoothest part of the Vel's hull with that definitive thump. Lee Hanna, leading the team, checked the seal. Green across the board. "We have a hard lock." Pressurizing the tube. In the airlock, Kim Jun stood with the first rescue team. He wore a heavy environment suit, like all of them. The suits were white and bulky, with large helmets and solid-looking gloves. He carried a case of medical supplies and repair tools. He was nervous, but not about the aliens. He was nervous about doing the job right. "Cycle the lock," Hanna ordered. With a hiss, the inner door of the Daedalus airlock closed. The air was pumped out. Then the outer door, connecting to the tube, opened. The tube was lit by bright white human lights. At the far end was the alien ship's own airlock door, a circular hatch made of a shimmering opal-like material. The walk down the tube felt long. Their boots clanged on the metal floor. To the listening Vel, it was the sound of heavy, deliberate footsteps. An invasion. Lee Hanna reached the alien door first. There was no obvious control. She placed a small scanner against it. "It's a biometric seal, keyed to their life signs. They'll have to open it from their side." She nodded to Jun. Kim Jun stepped up to the door. He activated his suit's external speaker, setting it to a low, calm volume. He spoke in the careful galactic standard he had practiced for years. "Luminous Wing, this is Kim Jun of the Earth vessel Daedalus. We are here to help. Please open the airlock door. We are friends." Inside, the Vel heard the voice. It was deep, filtered by the suit, but understandable. The word friends did not match the terrifying sight. The captain looked at its crew. They were frozen. They had asked for help. This was the result. "We must answer," the captain said finally. "We have no other choice." With a trembling hand, it pressed a crystal panel. The opal-like door dissolved into shimmering motes of light. Vanishing completely, the sight that greeted the Vel would be etched into their memories forever. The human rescue team stood framed in the doorway, backlit by their harsh white lights. They were huge. Their suits made them look even larger, like giants made of ceramic and metal. Their faces were hidden behind dark visors. They stood perfectly still for a moment. Then the lead figure, Lee Hanna, took a step forward. Her suit creaked. The Vel took a collective step back, a ripple of gray and white fear. Hanna stopped. She understood. Slowly, carefully, she raised her hands, palms out, a universal gesture she hoped they knew. "We mean no harm," she said. Her voice also filtered through the suit speaker. She then looked at Kim Jun and gave a small nod. It was his turn. Jun, following the protocol they had studied, slowly reached up with both hands. He placed them on the latches of his helmet. With a soft click and a hiss of equalizing pressure, he unlocked it. He lifted the helmet off. He shook out his short, dark hair. His face was exposed. It was a human face, warm-toned skin, dark eyes, expression of open concern. He was young. To the Vel, he looked strangely solid, his features strong and defined, not delicate at all. But he was not a monster. He was a person. He took a slow breath of the ship's air. Thin, he said, his natural voice softer than the suit speaker. But breathable. He smiled, a small, careful smile. I am Kim June. This is Chief Engineer Lee Hanna. We are here to help you. Captain Park Chul's voice came through the suit radios. June, their captain. Find their leader. June looked at the group of terrified, bird-like aliens. His eyes settled on the oldest one, whose feathers had silver bands. He bowed his head slightly, a sign of respect. Are you the captain? The Vel captain, its heart pounding, stepped forward. It had to be brave. I am, it said, its voice a warbling whisper. You? You are from the Deathworld? June blinked. He had heard the term, but never used to his face. We are from Earth. We heard your call. No one else was coming. The simple truth of that statement hung in the thin air. The Vel captain looked at the human's face, at the open concern there. It looked past him, at the other giants in suits, standing calmly. They had not forced their way in. They had waited. One had even taken off his helmet, sharing the same risky air. The fear did not vanish. But it was joined by a sliver of something else. Confusion. A crack in their terrible certainty. Your ship is badly hurt, Liana said, her voice practical. She had not removed her helmet. We need to see the damage. We need to understand what broke. Can you show us? The Vel captain looked at the human engineer, at her visored face, then back at Kim June's earnest eyes. The storm had been too much for the gentle galaxy. But the storm dwellers themselves had now walked into its nest. They said they were here to fix things. It was illogical. It was terrifying. But it was their only chance. Yes, the Vel captain said, its feathers shifting to a tentative muted blue. A color of fragile hope. Come, I will show you. The silence of Sector Theta 7 was a deep and perfect thing. It was the quiet of a tomb, cold and absolute, broken only by the faint, rhythmic hum of a dying ship. The luminous wing was a beautiful vessel. Its hull was not made of metal, but of a kind of engineered crystal, grown into a shape that curved like a bird's wing. It shimmered softly in the faint light of a distant red sun. Now that hull was cracked. A long, jagged fracture ran along its side, the result of a sudden, violent gravitational ripple from the gas giant it now drifted beside. Inside, the air was thin and cold. The crew, the Vel, moved with slow, careful steps. They were tall, slender beings. Their bodies were covered in fine, downy feathers that shifted color with their emotions. Now a dull, worried gray. Their large, dark eyes watched the main screen with a look of fading hope. Their captain, a Vel whose feathers bore the silver bands of age, let out a soft, chirping sigh. Send the signal again? The full spectrum. Someone will answer. The communications officer, its long fingers trembling, tapped the console. A standard galactic concordance distress beacon pulsed out into the void. It was a simple message of mathematics and universal symbols. Location, life form count, critical system failure, immediate aid required. On the bridge screen, a star map lit up. Little points of light, each representing a ship that had received the signal, blinked into existence. The Vel watched, holding their collective breath. The first to respond was a Sioni merchant cruiser. The Sioni were a people of light and crystal, much like the Vel, but even more delicate. Their ship appeared as a brilliant diamond on the scanner. For a long minute, it held position. Then, a text-only message scrolled across the Vel's screen in the elegant, spidery script of the Sioni. We receive your distress. Calculating intervention risk. The Vel captain felt a flicker of hope. The Sioni were advanced, peaceful. A moment later, a second message came. Asterisk risk assessment complete. Atmospheric toxicity from the gas giant's ring shadow is at 7.8 on the Galtox scale. Gravitational shear is unpredictable. Probability of successful rescue without catastrophic damage to our vessel, 12%. We grieve for your fate, but we cannot intervene. The beacon is noted. Asterisk. The diamond-shaped light on the scanner vanished as the Sione ship folded space and left out the hope on the bridge dimmed. The Vel's feathers fading to a paler gray dot, another light blinked. This one was a heavy, slow-moving signature. A Gran mineral barge. The Gran were sturdy, practical beings. Their response was faster, their message blunt. Gran barge or fist acknowledges. Debris field around your coordinates is too dense for our navigational shields. Hull integrity would be compromised. No profit in destruction. You are on your own. The light of the barge turned and lumbered away, heading for safer, emptier space. One by one, the lights on the map blinked in acknowledgement, and one by one, they blinked out. A graceful passenger liner from the Yar. Core world sighted. Protocols against entering. Unstable stellar regions. A scientific survey ship stated their hull was not. Rated for potential micro-impact events. Each refusal was polite. Each reason perfectly logical. In the civilized galaxy, risk was something to be calculated and almost always avoided. The Vel were not being rejected out of malice. They were being rejected out of sense. The silence on the luminous wing grew heavier. The captain's shoulders slumped. They were a peaceful people, artists and philosophers. Their ships were built for beauty and efficiency, not for surviving catastrophic failure in a toxic, gravity-warped corner of space. They had no weapons to fight, no strength to repair the terrible damage. Their fate was a simple equation, and every other ship in the sector had already solved it. The cost was too high. The Vel watched the last friendly light, a small courier vessel, flicker and disappear from the edge of their sensor range. Despair, a deep indigo color, washed over their feathers. They began to sing a low harmonic hum that was their people's song for the ending of things. They prepared to let the gas giant's pull finally take them. Weeks of travel away, on the very fringe of the sector, the GCS Daedalus finished its work. It was a human ship, and it looked nothing like the luminous wing. It was all hard angles and dull gray armor plating. It had no graceful curves. It had thick hull plates, oversized engine nozzles, and a sensor array protected by a visible cage of metal bars. It looked less like a ship and more like a deep-sea diving bell meant for space. It had been mapping the storm systems of an ice giant. A planet where the atmospheric pressure could crush a Sione cruiser like an eggshell. The Daedalus had flown through the fringes of those storms, its hull shuddering but holding, its systems built to endure. On the bridge, Communications Officer Kim Jun rubbed his eyes. The long shift monitoring empty space was boring. The galactic concordance channels were mostly quiet, filled with official bulletins and shipping logs in languages they were still learning. He preferred listening to the raw static, the natural radio waves from the gas giant. It was like listening to the ocean. A small, almost ghost of a signal brushed against the edge of his receiver. It was faint, distorted by distance and interference from the gas giant's magnetic field. He sat up straight. It was a pattern, a repeating pattern. He fine-tuned the array, the powerful human-made amplifiers digging the signal out of the cosmic noise. It was a distress beacon. Old by the packet decay, weak but unmistakable. "Captain," Kim Jun said, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. "I'm picking up a GCC distress signal. Origin is Sector Theta 7, near the ringed gas giant." Captain Park Chul turned from his conversation with Chief Engineer Lee Hanna. He was a man with a calm face and eyes that had seen many difficult things. "Theta 7? That's a backwater," Put it on speaker. A bridge filled with the sound of the beacon. It was the standard chime, but beneath the digital tone, June had managed to clean up a fragment of the secondary carrier wave. It held the voice data. A soft, warbling, melodic voice, speaking in panicked galactic standard. Failure is imminent. Life support at 60%. 23 souls on board. Please, anyone. The pull is increasing. The voice broke into static. Lee Hanna, her hands already flying over an engineering panel, pulled up the star chart. The ringed giant in Theta 7. It's a mess. High radiation, massive debris field from moon collisions, violent gravitational tides. Not a place you go unless you have to. Or unless you're broken and drifting, Kim June said softly. Park Chol stared at the star map, at the lonely blinking dot. The rules from Earth Command and from the wider galactic concordance were very clear. Humans were new. Their world, Earth, had been given a classification that made other species nervous. Deathworld. It meant a planet with extreme gravity, a poisonous atmosphere, rampant predatory life, and violent geological activity. Humans were, by association, Deathworlders. They were to be quiet, observant, and non-interventionist. Causing a diplomatic incident by bumbling into a situation could see their fledgling membership revoked. The signal is old, Captain, Kim June said. But it's on a loop. They might still be there. Holding on. Lee Hanna looked at the sensor analysis of the location. It's a death trap. No wonder no one else has helped them. The Sioni would cook in that radiation. The Gran would get their hull shredded. It's a suicide run. Park Chol was silent. He thought not of rules, but of the voice on the beacon. The fear in it was a universal language. He thought of Earth, of hurricanes that could flatten cities, of earthquakes that swallowed towns, of blizzards that buried mountains. He thought of how humans didn't just hide from these things. They built shelters to withstand them. They sent rescue teams into them. They endured. This was just another storm. A storm of gravity and radiation in space. Plot and intercept course, Park Chol said, his voice firm and quiet. Maximum burn. Hannah, I want the landing claws and all trauma kits readied. June, keep trying to raise them on all frequencies. Tell them someone is coming. Lee Hanna gave a sharp nod, a fierce look in her eyes. Aye, Captain. The Daedalus can take it. She moved to her station, already barking orders to her engineering team. That Kim June turned back to his console, sending a powerful, simple pulse back along the beacon's path. Hold on. Assistance is en route. Origin, Earth vessel Daedalus. He had no way of knowing if the message would get through. He also had no way of knowing what the beings on the luminous wing would feel when they received it. They had called for help from the gentle, civilized galaxy. The galaxy had given them perfect, logical reasons why it could not come. And now, something from a world of storms and volcanoes and crushing gravity was turning towards them, pushing its engines to their limit and coming to help.